I've never felt like this before. It's like you just get me. I feel like my true self with you. Does that sound crazy? And it doesn't hurt that you're gorgeous. Okay, that's it. I'm taking you home with me. I mean, you can't find shoes this good just anywhere. Find a shoe for every you from brands you love, like Birkenstock, Nike, Adidas, and more at your DSW store or dsw.com.
Edit audio.
Hey folks, today we're going to do something just a little bit different. Okay, our guest is Michelle MiJung Kim. She is the award-winning author of The Wake Up. She's a globally recognized speaker, and she happens to be the producer and host of I Feel That Way Too, a narrative podcast that asks life's trickiest questions so that we can feel less alone and more alive together. And in my opinion, when you got somebody with credentials like that, you let them speak. So instead of opening with a moment from my life or whatever, here is Michelle talking about fear and the courage to overcome it for your beliefs.
So much of my life, my body has been driven by fear. Fear of scarcity made me chase bigger and bigger goals. Fear of becoming irrelevant kept me visible even when I was drowning. Fear of abandonment turned me into a shapeshifter, always scanning for the edges of acceptance. But something shifted with Palestine. The cognitive dissonance that I'd learned to carry, talking about justice while staying profitable and critiquing systems while benefiting from them, was imploding from the inside, and there was no quelling it. Maybe it was the gruesome videos of children under rubble, or the desperate messages from journalists in Gaza. But whatever was shooting up from my chest had to be vomited out right then and there. There was no time to make it pretty or palatable, and maybe I already knew that no amount of polished words or corporate maneuvering would protect me from the choice I was about to make. The calculus was over, and so was my career as I knew it. Speaking out cost me a whole lot, literally. I lost 90% of my income and countless opportunities. But more than that, it shattered the illusion I'd held on to for so long, that I was actually valued for what I believed in. And that we all believed in the same thing. These days, I lie awake wondering, was I foolish to believe I could actually make a difference inside these systems? What if my best years are behind me? What if I can't make money anymore? What if I never recover?
Today we chat, well, the importance of courage. Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having me.
So I listened to your podcast. I Feel That Way Too. And I mean, first of all, I have to say, I absolutely love it. But second of all,
thank you.
You're welcome. But I couldn't help but think like we're kind of doing the same thing, but like in different ways. Like yours is kind of this elegant, I was going to say elegant, but I really meant eloquent narrative format. And ours is, you know, of course, interview based and with a comedy slant. And producer Steph and I have absolutely no credentials whatsoever, but we've got loads of life experience. But to me, what stood out the most was that we're both talking about really similar things. Like we're having meaningful conversations about personal experience. And so I'm absolutely thrilled, and I'm going to speak on Steph's behalf and say she is as well. We're so happy that you're here with us today. And we're going to talk about a very important topic, which is courage, why some have it, why some don't, and how to build practices to support and encourage folks to speak up. So all of that said, why don't you tell folks about yourself before we launch into courage?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Michelle MiJung Kim. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a writer, activist, entrepreneur, a lot of hyphenated identities. I'm a Korean-American immigrant. I was born and raised in South Korea, immigrated to the U.S. when I was a teenager. I came out as queer, bisexual when I was a high school student, which was the beginning of my politicization. And I was a, very angry and passionate youth activist. And somehow I did a complete 180 after college and decided to go into the field of management consulting. I know. I see your face is like, what?
At least
Plot
you didn't
twist.
say like stand-up comedy. I decided to try my hand at improv.
That takes a lot of courage. So I don't think I have that much courage yet. Maybe someday. But I went into corporate America because, frankly, I needed to make money, and there was not a lot of money in activism. And I needed money because I needed to bring my mom here to the States because we were living separately. And for people who have gone through the immigration process, they know how difficult and expensive it is.
Yeah.
So when I got into corporate America, I think that was the first time where I ever faced this discipline called diversity, equity, and inclusion, which resembled a little bit of what I was doing before in terms of social justice, but really it was this sanitized, whitewashed, often white-led thing that was more of a marketing tactic than anything else. And I think that was also the beginning of when I started to feel like I needed to speak up more than I was comfortable with in order to feel some sort of alignment that I was searching for. And the through line of my work has been ever since I was in, tech, ever since I was in management consulting, but also as an entrepreneur, has been figuring out what makes certain people more courageous, and what makes others feel less compelled to take action. And I can share a few stories later on around my own experiences of that. But essentially, I left corporate America to start my own company. And I also wrote a book called The Wake Up, Closing the Gap Between Good Intentions and Real Change. And now I'm a podcast host.
I love just dropping in the middle of that. And I wrote this book. like no big deal. Like I did an essay in my spare time. First of all, it's all fantastic. And I love the whole journey of it because it is true. Like when you said it's DEI is often, white led, I was just thinking of every Linda from HR, running DEI and running all of the, all of the affinity groups.
Yes. And there's a lot of Lindas out there.
A lot of Lindas from HR. But I want to bring us back to the courage conversation and ask you, like, how do you define courage? Like, we might as well start there. Like, what does it mean for you?
Yeah. I've been doing a lot of digging around courage and how to define courage. And there are many different definitions of courage, from researchers to dictionaries. And really, I think the one definition that I find the most simple and compelling is by Dr. Cynthia Puri, who defines courage as taking a worthwhile risk.
Oh.
It's as simple as that. Taking a worthwhile risk is how she defines it. There are longer definitions for sure, but I think that really encapsulates what makes courage so hard, but also what makes courage so important.
Yeah.
Many researchers have found commonalities in their studies around what constitutes a courageous action. And there are 4 things that I have sort of come up with that summarizes the findings and also my own twist on it. So I'm happy to share that with you as well.
I do want to hear that, but I want to say that I love that definition. It's so simple and clean. I used to volunteer with this organization called Youth at Risk, and the woman who led it was this incredibly powerful woman, and she used to talk to the kids about, she would say, if you aren't scared, if your heart isn't beating, if you're not up to something, like you're not growing, you're not changing, you're not moving, you're not putting yourself out there. And I think I would put that in with courage too, is just like the idea that like sometimes it's in facing it is scary. And we started off with a piece about a moment in your life where you did a courageous act. I mean, I don't know if you could do a courageous act. You were courageous. And it really had ramifications in your life. Like, so before we get to the 4 pillars, would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started talking about Palestine, what's going on in Palestine, starting in October of 2023, I almost immediately got retaliation from clients and from public sort of online commenters and trolls. And I lost about 90% of my income.
90%.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a really scary time. And I still haven't financially recovered from that loss. I don't have the same sort of list of clients because I think not only were people scared to speak out against genocide in Palestine, they were also scared to associate themselves with people who are really publicly visible. And I think that's still happening. And I'm not the only one who's faced retaliation and consequences for speaking out. And I thought I was doing what is consistent with the work that I've been doing for many years. And I frankly didn't realize how unpopular my public advocacy for Palestine would be and how costly it would be. So I took some time off to really figure out what my foundation is, because with the income loss, and I have a lot of financial trauma from my childhood because I grew up low income and my dad was undocumented. My biggest fear in life was that scarcity.
Oh yeah,
that I'm
it's still with
somehow
me today.
going to lose everything. Yeah, and the reason why I went into corporate America is because I thought that's what I needed to do to make money and to have some semblance of stability in my life that I didn't have growing up.
Yeah,
and for that to all be taken away after years of building my own career, building my own company, building my reputation, and overnight it was all gone.
That's scary.
I not only had to reckon with my values and really what was worth putting all of that on the line for, but also my own sense of self and my identity.
Yeah.
And I think most of my life, I was defined by my success. I thought that I was a high performer.
Yeah.
I am always very resourceful. I can always achieve my goals. I'm always wanted. I'm always relevant. So when all of that went away, no one was calling me anymore. I was irrelevant. I was feeling really shitty about myself.
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck am I without my job, without my career, without people needing me for something?
Yeah.
When people don't call me anymore, then what do I stand on?
Yeah.
So over the last 2.5 years or so, that's the battle that I've been having internally, is how do I rebuild the foundation that defines who I am and my identity outside of productivity, outside of, these capitalist markers of success. And how do I get good within? How do I get more sturdy about who I am inside, even without any external validation? Because that vanished overnight.
Yeah. Well, what's so interesting about hearing your story and then paralleling it to the conversation that we're having about courage is that courage is the thing that gets you to do the thing. But I think that sometimes it gets a bad rap in that it gets conflated with the thing that I didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And so the action step and the step to be courageous are two entirely different things, but they can get squished together like a pancake. I'll never put myself out there in that way again because the thing I said resulted in X, Y, and Z. You have to string it apart, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't have been courageous. It just is one of the outcomes that happened. But in that moment, did you have feelings like, I shouldn't have done that, or regrets, or did stuff come up around the idea of I will not do that again? Did you feel like yourself kind of shrink a bit?
That's such a good question. I think my parents did.
I bet they did.
my parents kept telling me to calm down, to go softer. And what's funny, Robin, is the only thing that kept me going and the only thing that had me feeling some sort of groundedness was that I would not do anything differently.
Yeah,
that was the only thing that kept me going. I kept thinking, well, I'm not making any money anymore. No one's looking for me. I am irrelevant. I lost all this stuff. And would I do anything differently? Would I not speak up about these videos that I'm seeing on my phone of children and civilians getting bombed. And the answer for me was, no, I wouldn't do anything differently. And this is the outcome. It sucks that we live in a world where speaking up against genocide is punished like that. But it is the consequence. And that's, what you talked about in terms of the outcome of your courageous action is not guaranteed. And I think that's precisely what makes something courageous.
Yes.
Because there is a risk involved.
Yes.
And the outcome is unexpected and uncertain. So your ability to overcome that uncertainty and ride that wave of anxiety around what the future holds is part of what makes you courageous.
Well, and we talk all the time about how like life and growth is not linear. Like you could take one step to the left and then you're over in another quadrant and then you're back and then you're around and you're, it's not like I did this and then I do this and then this. And I think it's like in that moment, I think of that, like there's a whole phrase of like good luck, bad luck, who can say? It is the circumstance and what you do with it. And like while all those horrible things happen to you, at the same time, I'd imagine it shifted you in a way, whether it be career or your focus or your growth, that would not have happened had you not taken that action. And I think that's the thing sometimes I want people to remember is when you do a courageous thing, it might like blow up at first, but like that doesn't mean it wasn't worth it and there isn't growth and there aren't things that are going to come from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point because a lot of people shy away from taking risks because they are heavily weighing on what they're going to lose versus what they can gain. And, psychologists have said that is human nature, right? We tend to want to take less risk than to want to go towards something that could be higher reward. And for me, even though I lost a lot, I think I would have also lost a lot had I not spoken up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that there is always a cost the other way too.
Yeah.
That I think I would have had to face myself in ways that probably would have been a lot more difficult had I not taken action in terms of the kind of guilt and shame I was feeling when I was doing, when I thought I could be doing more. So I think that there is a cost of our silence and inaction, not only to others, but also to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think that the kind of clarity that I've gotten around who I am, what makes me me, I don't think I would have arrived at that conclusion without the loss, without the risk that I took. And also, I of course, I got to connect with other people who took similar risks. So I have a community of people who I know are navigating similar things. And I also had clients who stood by me. And all of those things also added to this experience of what it's like to have unexpected outcomes, but that is something to gain and something that you lose along the way regardless.
Hey folks, it's Robin. All right, so we are putting together a special holiday episode and we need your help. We want to hear your worst holiday stories. The ones that today you laugh about them, but back then you were definitely crying. Or if you have an upcoming holiday situation that you're already dreading, you can tell us about that too, because we're going to take these questions and we're going to break them down, give a little bit of advice, and we're going to hopefully make you feel less alone and a little bit more amused. So send us your story. We would prefer it if you'd send us a voice memo because we love to hear you tell it, but you can write it out if that's easier for you. You can email us at hello@editodd.io, or you can DM me on the socials at RealRobHops. And do not worry, if you would rather stay anonymous, just let us know in the email and that is totally fine.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Something that I've been thinking a lot about is how often people think of the things that are happening in the world right now as other people's problems.
Yeah.
And there's so many communities under attack. And also there are a lot of people who have not yet felt viscerally what that threat and violence look like in their own life. And I think the short-sightedness of that is how people don't understand so much of our struggles are actually so interconnected. And whenever I talk to people about why they value things like DEI or social justice, oftentimes people talk about it as if it's a charity work, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, well, I want to give back, and a lot of white people say, I want to give back. I have so many privileges that I want to help other people because I've been fortunate and da 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 da. And I think that's a good sentiment, but I think it's a misguided one. I think that kind of perspective of seeing these issues as separate from who they are and something that they do out of the goodness of their hearts sets them up as accidental saviors and martyrs that we don't want because we want this work to feel like a solidarity work, right? That we want
or better
to be
than.
equals.
There's a better than. There's
right. There's some sort of superiority.
Yeah, there really is.
And I think that as soon as more people realize that all of our struggles are actually connected, and that when we fight against racism, it's not just to help those people who are people of color, but it's actually to fight our common enemies, right?
Yeah.
So something that I always say is, I don't want men to fight for women's rights just because they care about the women in their lives. I want men to fight against patriarchy and misogyny because they know that it's the same forces that are caging them into restrictive gender roles. I want white people to fight against racism and white supremacy, not only because they care about their people of color colleagues or friends or neighbors, but because white people also understand that white supremacy is robbing them of their humanity too. And I think the sooner we realize that, and the sooner we realize the forces that are oppressing marginalized groups first are always going to come back at us, of course, to different degrees, I think the sooner we'll realize that we have to build power, we have to move in solidarity in order to create the kind of world that we all deserve.
Yeah. I want to bring Steph in here, but I do want you to talk about the things that you said you were thinking about, the like 4 pillars of what you believe courage to be, because I think it's a good point for us to start to talk about, like, why now is it courageous? How do we bring people into this conversation and encourage people to be more courageous?
Yeah. So the first 3, I call this the 4 C's, and the first 3 C's are directly informed by research that other people have done. And the first is cost. There is a cost, there is a risk, there are usually trade-offs, whether perceived or real, that people are assessing when they are thinking about being courageous in a situation. And that can be a financial cost, that could be a physical risk, that could be social risk, right? Like your connections and relationships and your reputation. So there's some sort of cost that makes the act inherently courageous. And then the second C is cause. Usually, we overcome our fears, we overcome the need to trade off things because we believe in something greater than ourselves, because we believe that there is a deeper rooted why on why our courage is needed. And usually it's something that researchers are calling noble or worthy cause. And that could mean different things to different people. And depending on what you value and what your values are, you may be more inclined to be courageous in certain situations than others. Third C is choice. You can't do this forced. If you're forced to do it, it's not courageous, right? And you do have to exercise your willpower and agency to take action out of your own conviction. And this is impacted by your belief in the expected outcomes, your confidence around your self-efficacy, your skill set, but also a huge part of it is self-regulation.
Yeah.
Are you in tune with your fears? Are you in tune with what is going on inside of you so that you can actually, listen to what your body is saying and be able to regulate yourself in a way that directs you to a more courageous behavior?
It just makes me think of my kids and doing things just because I told them to. I'm always like, don't do it because I told you to do it. Do it because you want to do it.
Robin, you're robbing them of courageous opportunities.
Well, I want them to do it because they want to do what's right, but that is not always how it goes.
Exactly.
Sometimes they do it because they don't want to be grounded, but they'll grow up to be adults who make that choice. All right, keep going.
Yeah, so these are the three things that I found very consistent, what researchers have found. The last thing is what I'm most excited about, that I'm kind of putting my own twist on it, not research backed, but lived experience backed.
This is what we like.
The fourth C is community. Oftentimes, when I look at the research of courage, it's studied as an individual trait or behavior. But my sense of courage that I have studied in my own life is that we can't actually be courageous all the time alone. We need community. We need to lean on each other. We need to be inspired by other people. We need to inspire other people, and that we are courageous, exponentially more courageous when we are in community.
Yeah.
And when we see other people who are like us, not just the fearless heroes that we see on TV, but people who you relate to, right?
Yeah.
People who are your neighbors, your friends, your peers, who we think of as our, mirrors. When we see them taking certain types of risks, we are more likely to take those risks. So I think community is an essential part of how we build collective courage, especially at a time like this. And also because we need the safety net of community to help us move through some of these really big trade-offs that we are being asked to make right now.
Yeah, it's really true because it's like I think about if somebody does something, I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. I do think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Steph, go ahead.
I just need to say that pre you saying this, I was chatting with Oliver, who does our social media for this show, about like things that I should ask or whatever. And I said, and I quote, "What's so interesting is that often courage is easier in community." And it sounds like Michelle lost that.
Yeah.
And so I obviously was already thinking like, okay, to me, courage is something that's almost always most effective when practiced in community. And I've always said like, people always complain about like the people at the very, very edges of every spectrum of like activism. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you need those people to have the people in the middle because that's what inspires them. And so I guess, I mean, my question for you was, did you feel when you were being courageous that you were losing that community? And was that the hard part of it? Or was there...
That's a good question. The sense of deep disappointment and betrayal I felt from people that I trusted would have my back, it cut deep. And I tell you, it brought me squarely back to my childhood, where I would see my dad be belittled for his broken English and no one would step in to speak on behalf of him. And me feeling really powerless that I couldn't protect his dignity.
Yeah.
Those are the moments that gets brought up whenever I feel like I'm alone in the fire. And just as courage is infectious and contagious, so is inaction and cynicism.
Yes. You only have to see that on a subway when something happens and nobody jumps in to help someone or save someone.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think, Steph, to your point, there are always these people who are living on the edges, right? People who are the first to speak out, people who are first to jump in when there's something going on. But that's not what creates movements. We can't create or sustain a movement with those people alone. And in my book, I actually talk about this concept of being the second courageous. We have to learn to become the second courageous people when we aren't the first ones. Just think about being in a meeting, corporate meeting, where somebody makes a really shitty joke and one brave person calls it out. And then the person who said the joke says, come on, lighten up. It was just a joke. And no one says anything. That moment is over.
Yeah, except after the meeting, when people go up to that first person and then they go, that was so great that you said that.
So
great
courageous
that you said that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Rolling my eyes backwards.
Yeah.
Yes. And I call that delayed camaraderie.
Yeah.
And that is not useful in those moments, right? What we need is another person to say, hey, actually, I found that offensive too. Or, hey, come on, like that wasn't funny.
Yeah.
And back them up. But we don't have the muscle to do that. Mm-mm. For some reason, we expect people who are, we believe some people are just more inherently open to risk taking.
Yeah.
But that's not true, right? We are all capable of taking those risks. We are all capable of being more courageous, but it does take practice. It does take conviction. It does take clarity around what is the cause that we care deeply about that is worth risking something for. And so, yes, I think during that time, I felt so much disappointment and hurt and betrayal, not only from my colleagues and DEI professionals who are literally supposed to talk about oppressive systems and dismantling them. But they also had a lot riding on them, right? Like they had a lot riding on their jobs. They couldn't speak out and risk losing their job that feeds their family. And I get that too. So it was a really complicated time.
I think what's so interesting, and this is like, I always get hung up on this, and I like the idea of courageousness as a muscle that you're exercising, because I think, obviously in order to be courageous in the moment, you have to have a certain sense of safety. No one is going to jump off a cliff if they don't think they're going to, some part of them thinks they're going to stick the landing. Like, there's just no, unless they're trying to die. But yeah, but I'm like, so you have to have some sense of safety. But what's so interesting is that I find, at least, and I feel like I see this everywhere, the people that are the most courageous are often the people that are the most marginalized, that have the least actual safety.
Yeah.
Whether that be, talking about costs, like whether they'll actually lose their job, whether they are getting the most money, whether they have the most expensive, whether they're supporting the most people in their life, blah, 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 blah. And so I guess it is really about the practice, because I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm it boggles my mind, because I'm like, okay, in some sense you have to feel safe, but actually it's the people that don't feel safe that are being courageous the most. Part of that's like, fuck that. I fucking hate that. But another part of it is like, okay, well, if we have to have a silver lining, that's cool.
And I'm glad you said that too, Steph, though, because it's like the thing that keeps swirling around in my head is taking it to today. And I find if this was a coin, the opposite side of this courage conversation we're having is hopelessness. And I think that sometimes hopelessness, at least I'll just speak for myself, as my therapist has often told me to do, hopelessness for me, it'll start showing up this woman just cut me in front of the line. How do these people sleep? This is where we are as a country. This is where we are as a people. And half of our country is this, and they are voting for this. And in that noise, in that conversation, I think I'm probably less likely to be, I don't know if I want to say truly courageous or to step into the space of change versus I fucking hate everyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want to address both of those things because I think I relate to them. And Steph, to your point about seeing people who have more safety taking less risk is a very frustrating reality that I see over and over again. And I don't know if it's because people who have more privileges feel like they have more to lose and that they are so used to living in this cocoon of their own comfort and safety that they don't want to risk losing that. Or if it's because they didn't have as many experiences of having to fight for their own safety and dignity and that they are lacking practice. I don't know. But from my own experience, when I went to my first direct action that was likely going to lead to me getting arrested. I was terrified. And it was probably the most edgy work that I've done in terms of, activism and grassroots, like direct action work. And let me tell you, 90% of the people that were there were women of color, young women of color, and some older, very experienced activists who were like elderly. And that was fascinating to me. And I asked the question, where are all the men? And somebody said, they're all the cops. So that is a very real phenomenon that I see in real life.
Which ties into community, right? It's like people that are also of different intersecting marginalized identities are also the ones that usually rely on and believe in community most because we've had to. So,
because when you need support, you're more likely to see when someone else needs support and give it because you've been in that position.
Yeah. And I think it's also I don't know, that sometimes when I meet certain people who have been so disconnected from the life of other people who are different than them, I feel a sense of hollowness, this lack of humanity that also I think contributes to, or maybe it's a chicken and egg problem where they're so soaked in this individualistic culture that they believe that their life is only themselves and their nuclear family. And as long as they can provide for them, they are safe. They are having a good life. They're going out to brunch. And I think that is really sad.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to examine about how our culture, how our systems insist that we live in isolation rather than living more interconnected lives. It takes real effort to go against the grain of what society wants you to do. Like, we're on social media more than we're with our real friends. I like and comment on my friends' posts more often than I actually text and call them. And, many young people who grew up during the pandemic have learned to fear people. Think about what we were doing during the pandemic. Like, we were seeing everybody else as a risk.
Yeah.
And I think that has something, that has an impact on our psyche, on how we interact with one another. And also this insistence on we need to survive because there's so much scarcity in the world.
Yeah.
So I can't afford to share. I can't afford to take these risks for other people because I need to take care of myself first and foremost. Or even the narrative of self-care is so, wrapped around this idea of healing yourself, right? Yeah. You go to therapy, you take medication, you alone in the dark do your own healing work, and then you come out all healed. Like, that's not how healing happens. Healing happens in community also.
Yeah.
My favorite TikTok recently is this woman. She's like, all relationships, like not just romantic relationships, like any relationship you have in life is not going to be perfect all the time. It is going to put you in a place of discomfort often.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not a relationship. And I'm like,
yeah.
Yes. And I think as a society, we have lost that thread that, like, in order to be a friend or a colleague or a child of a parent or a parent to a child in a good way, it's going to be uncomfortable sometimes. And you're going to have to do shit you don't want to do.
Yeah. I saw something. I think this is a slogan that's going around, is that the cost of community is inconvenience, that you will have to do things that you don't want to. You're going to have to carpool. You're going to have to deliver groceries to your neighbor when they're sick. Or, there are lots of things that I think, just lack practice because it's just not a norm anymore in our society. The last tech company that I was at, I left without a plan because one of my best friends got assaulted by the CEO. And it was only me and my friend who was sexually assaulted, and the only Black woman at the company that left. No one else left. No one else staged a walkout or a petition. And the reasons that I heard from those people were, well, I just bought a house. I can't quit. I need to pay my mortgage. I'm on an immigrant visa, so it's going to be really hard for me to find a new job. I have a dependent that is depending on me for health insurance. And these are all very valid and legitimate reasons that people cite when they aren't able to do the thing that they actually want to do. And I understand that. And I think because we have designed our society so that we have to depend on these capitalist systems for our very basic needs, it makes it that much more difficult for us to take risks that jeopardize those things.
Yeah.
And the only answer at this time is for us to start investing in alternative systems of safety net, which is community.
Yeah.
I feel like I can take more risks knowing that I have a group of people who are willing to jump in and help me when I need.
Yeah.
So whether that is, I know people are going to organize for me if I ever get arrested.
Steph and I'll come get you out.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to call you, Robin.
You seriously, we'll come get you.
I know people are going to show up and, people did show up and give me food when I was sick and I couldn't do anything, right? Like they will just drop off things for me to eat because I couldn't cook. So there were so many things that I know just very viscerally I felt that I needed in terms of just concrete resources that I knew these systems wouldn't provide for me. That I know a lot of marginalized people have similar experiences like that, where they can't rely on the systems to take care of them, but their community will.
Yeah.
And I think that is the kinds of safety net that we all need to build that many people don't have, that we need to intentionally go out of our ways to build in order for us to be able to take more courageous actions.
What's interesting is that we're doing this little short segment every 2 weeks called Steph and Robin Get Well. And we're trying small practices of wellness or, things we want to improve on for 2 weeks and then reporting back. And I think it'd be really interesting to do one, could be very small, one courageous thing a day. Like something that gives you something that makes your heart just flutter a little bit. Everything you're saying boils down to two things: community and practicing the muscle of being courageous.
Yeah.
And so I think the way that we can create both is to have the well-adjusting community practice one small act of courage each day. I think that'd be amazing.
I
Robin,
love that.
I love you. And I also think
you already
we
write
have
that down?
one brain cell. We have one
You just wrote
brain
that down,
cell
didn't you?
shared between all of us. Yes. What are the micro acts of courage that you can do? And I don't know.
Well, it could be this might have been a little out of hand, but got into a little bit of a tussle with somebody on the subway the other day because he was jamming into me and was jamming his backpack in. And I was like, I'm not going to sit here and shut up. I was holding my backpack and I said, take your backpack off. And then he just looked at me and he goes, now. And then he walked to the other end of the train and everybody was staring at me.
Rude.
No one stood up for me. No one did anything. And I was just like,
God
well,
damn it.
I was like, I said my thing for today. But I think they can be small things. They can be, Steph does this all the time. You'll pass someone on the street and you'll be like, hey, I love your hair. Your hair looks fantastic today. Or, ooh, cool shoes. And I think there's something that for me is a small courageous act because I'm uncomfortable with strangers. I think they're going to be like, shut up, old lady. It's all my insecurities.
Why are you
pop
talking
up.
to me?
I know, who asked
sometimes
you,
in New York,
bitch?
they are.
Yeah, exactly.
But very infrequently.
But I'm just saying, I think that for me, those are the immediate small things that I think we can think about. What do you two think would be small, micro acts that people could try, or what would they be to you?
Wait, I do want to say though, on that note, that was an intentional action of mine that I made my New Year's resolution in 2023 or 2022, I think, was just if you think a nice thought, say it. Because I had another friend that said something to me and was like, I'm just trying to say the nice thoughts I have in my head out loud more because I think we need more of that. And I was like, why can't I do that? What part of me is afraid of being nice? What? I'm afraid of getting shut down after giving someone a compliment? That's so dumb. But what I will say is now that I've done it so many times, I've sometimes say shit and I don't even think about it. I'll be walking on the street, oh my God, great shoes. And then I move on. And it's because the muscle.
But to the earlier point, also, it's contagious. I am now trying to do that because you do that and my daughter does it.
Aww. Aw.
I do have a brave
Oh,
thing
that's
where I
so
tell people
sweet.
when their fly is open. Because
Oh,
I'm like,
will
I want
always
someone to tell me
when they have
that.
shit in their teeth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Michelle, what would be some small acts for you?
Something that I want to challenge everybody to do is pick a person and try to be really honest with them about
Ooh.
how you feel. And I think
I just got uncomfortable inside.
We hold back so much, whether it is, what they mean to us, whether that's positive or something that they did a long time ago that we're still holding against, like there's so many things that we hold on to because we are so afraid of damaging our relationship or coming across as being too cheesy or whatever the fuck it is. Practice being honest with somebody that you care about.
Oh, I love that.
The hardest thing that I did this year was talking to my mom about how I really felt about my childhood.
Oh, shit. That's not a small thing.
That was not a small thing. Yes. I had to work up to that. But, I worked around it. I created a whole podcast episode so I could talk about it. And then I made her listen to it before it came out because I could not face her and talk about it plainly.
You
So
fit
write a whole
in the
book.
well-adjusting family. You so fit in the well-adjusting family.
Yeah. So I could not have a conversation with her, so I made a podcast about it. That was the hardest thing that I had to do this year. That was the most courageous thing that I did. And it was hard. There were a lot of tears, a lot of screaming, and I feel so much lighter because of it. And I feel like I could do something more courageous because of that. So I challenge all of you, all the listeners, and you too, Robin.
Thank you.
To be really honest with somebody that you care about in your life.
I do have to say, being honest with someone doesn't mean it's mean. Like you can be honest with someone in a way that's constructive and it's not like
and kind.
But I love that.
But you can tell someone to take their backpack off on the subway in a bitchy way too.
I think I might have, just for the record. I'm pretty sure I did.
You can be like, "Hey, you keep bumping into me. Can you please take your back off?"
We were knee deep in the fight at that point, and I do acknowledge it was probably a bad example for this because I did start off with when he backed into me. I did start off with "Excuse me," so it's like I don't know how courageous that was. It was just perhaps me losing control of my anger, but that's for another episode.
I think this is a very juicy challenge that I hope people will take up.
I love it. I just want to say thank you for sitting down with us. And like, I love that you just bring your whole self to the work that you do. It's inspirational, like without jokes.
Thank you.
And I think we need it now more than ever. So tell people how they can, follow you, listen to you, buy your book, all of the things.
Yeah. Well, I'm on all the social media platforms. I am on Instagram at Michelle Kim or on LinkedIn. And you can go to my website, www.michellemijungkim.com, to find my book, information about my speaking engagements and podcasts. I feel that way too. And I just want people to know that there are many, many, many of us who are building every single day toward the world that we deserve and we want. And we need to just pay attention to our surroundings to see who's doing that and keep tuning into that energy of hope and possibility, and don't fall into the very tempting path of cynicism and jadedness, because that is not going to get us anywhere. And one of my favorite quotes about courage comes from a disability justice activist, Mia Mingus, who says, "We can only truly practice courage when we are afraid."
Mic drop.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was amazing. All right. So you heard in the middle of that interview, both Steph and I committed to micro acts of courage. And since recording, we took that on. So take a listen.
Okay, so first day, and I am walking right now to go canvass for the New York mayoral election. And I am nervous to the extent that I went back inside and changed my outfit because it's like new people doing something I have never done before in a country that I can't even vote in. So I feel afraid on many levels, but I do feel a sense of like communal belief and hope, and I'm working and making moves with courage towards that. At least that's what I keep telling myself, but I'll let you know how it goes.
What if I can't think of anything courageous to do? I'm walking home from PT and I'm like trying to generate courageous acts. What? And then I'm like, what if I work from home all day? What's courageous? Ugh, hard. This one's a hard one. God damn it, you're gonna win.
I just finished canvassing. It was great. Shockingly positive experience. I'm glad I put myself out there. It was scary. I feel good about community and good about my decision, and also exhausted from talking to so many strangers because I am not extroverted enough for that.
My small acts of courage this week are saying hi to people when I pass them on the street. Spread a little joy. Makes you uncomfortable. Doing it anyway. I just said this very awkward hi to this lady who was like sort of starting to turn to me, and I thought I could get her eye, and I was going to tell her I liked her coat, but then she turned to like look at someone else and talk to them, and then I felt really stupid.
I went canvassing again yesterday, which was really fun, and then they asked me if I would go to the polling place and talk to people, so I did that, and that was super fun and really tiring and really scary because I was like, instead of going to people's doors, approaching just like strangers on the street, which like every New Yorker hates a stranger on the street talking to them. I feel really good about it. And actually, people were really, really nice.
You're so courageous.
No, you're so courageous.
Thank you. It was okay. I think, honestly, it started off really strong for me because I definitely, like, that day went out and had to be courageous. And I did a few times since then. But I'm realizing I don't come up against many moments where I'm questioning whether or not to be courageous.
We're the same motherfucking person.
Oh
it
my
is
God.
so, like, this is my big takeaway, Steph.
Mm.
Because it was like the first day, like I was saying to you, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But I had this realization that, like, in general, on the day to day, like, I will do those little things that make me uncomfortable. Like, I will say to a person, like, I just grabbed some guy, I like tapped him and I was like, oh God, this can be uncomfortable. And then I was like, whatever. Cause he had the, you know, like when you buy something from like Old Navy and there's that plastic sticker that runs down the pants saying size 12. I wish. And I was like, excuse me. I was like, you've got your sticker on. I was like, you got to, and he was like, oh God,
so
thank
nice.
you. So I do those
That's
things.
the lettuce in the teeth moment.
Yeah,
It's another
exactly. You know, I had another thing with someone on Reddit where someone was like in need of help, and I reached out to them and I was a little uncomfortable. I was like, I hope they won't think this is weird, but I did it. And it ended up being such a cool thing that I was able to help somebody. But, you know, so it's like, I was like, I might not do it the way that you do it. Like, you are all the time going up to people on the street and being like, you look so cute. But I did add a little of that in.
Yeah. And I think something you just said about that Reddit thing, it's like whenever I get afraid, it's usually about how I'm being perceived. It's not usually about the person or whether or not they want help. Like, I'm usually like, oh, well, who am I to give that help? And like, maybe they don't even want it from me. And like, why am I being courageous? Like, they probably don't even care about me or whatever. And like, the only concrete example I can give is I was just canvassing in my neighborhood and I don't speak Spanish. And I know I'm like a gentrifier in this neighborhood. And because of that, I show up in a lot of ways in my community, or I try to, so that I'm like integrated. But I don't speak Spanish and I am trying to learn. But guess what? It takes longer than you think. And so I was talking to all these people in my neighborhood and I'm trying to speak Spanish with them like a little bit. And, you know, all I can say is like, hey, have you voted yet? But I'm like afraid to do that. But it's not because I'm afraid like to have the conversation or something. It's because I have my own shit about gentrifying this neighborhood and I'm afraid of being judged and whatever. And I think just taking a moment to like decipher why acting courageous feels scary is a good reminder that most times it's about you. It's like your own shit. It's not about actually what's happening or the situation that's in front of you, because most people are like kind people, you know.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, out of all of the Steph and Robin Get Wells that we've done so far, I thought this one was the most like a little scary and vulnerable and put me. I'm now
Don't put
speaking
me
about
there
us
with
like
you.
I know. I'm sorry, but it put me in a position to be really like I'm up to something and scared, and that was like kind of cool. I said hi to more people than I've probably said hi to in my life in this neighborhood.
Aw.
And then I do want to say this one thing before we wrap this is like courageous was contagious, which is like should be a t-shirt. Because we had a team meeting for the podcast and we were talking about this segment. And then somebody on your team was like, I have to say something courageous. And it was about our recording. And then someone else was like, I'm going to say something courageous. And then I said something that was like out of my comfort zone. And it was like that space was created by Michelle having this conversation with us. And I thought that was really fucking cool.
I love that. I want to know, and I want to hear from people that do this with us, or not with us, I guess, but do it from now on, because I'm going to continue doing this. So I want to hear from people. And like, I mostly think acts of courage can be really different moment to moment and also person to person. You know, like not everyone is talking to their neighbors. Not everyone lives in New York where you see your neighbors and 9 million other people every day. So I want to know what your acts of courage are.
Yeah, like record a little soundbite of you telling us about your act of courage and send it to us. hello@editodd.io. I
Look
did
at
it, Steph.
I
did
love a
it.
voice note.
I did it. For more Robin, and you may need that, you probably don't need it, but like if you do, you can follow me at Real Rob Hops on all the platforms, all the socials, as the kids today say. Well Adjusting is an Edit Audio original series. It's exec produced by Steph Colburn and Robin Hopkins. Our producer and editor is Maria Passingham, and our production manager is Kathleen Speckert. Thank you to the entire Edit Audio team and to you for listening. Oh, hey, before you take out those AirPods, this show is just for entertainment. If you are in need of help, please, please, please reach out to a professional. Go ahead and get that help. You deserve it.